It was just past noon when the lunch rush hit Denny's on Fairview Avenue. The air inside was heavy with the smell of frying oil and burnt coffee, and the tables filled quickly with the usual weekday crowd: contractors in neon vests, a group of teachers grading papers, and a few older regulars who lingered longer than they should. Malik stepped in quietly, holding a plain canvas bag. He wore a dark crewneck, old jeans, and running shoes that had seen a few too many miles. He stood near the entrance for a moment, waiting for a hostess. None came. After a minute, he walked toward a booth in the corner, one that had just been wiped down. A waitress, thin and impatient, spotted him halfway there. She intercepted. "You can't sit yet, we seat people in order," she said sharply, blocking his path with a practiced move that suggested this wasn't her first time turning someone away. Malik glanced at the half-empty booth, then back at her. "Wasn't trying to skip. No one was at the stand." She folded her arms. "Well, we've had people walking in lately thinking this is some kind of shelter. Can't have folks just sitting wherever." He didn't reply. She waited a beat. "You looking for someone, or?" "I'm here to eat," he said simply. The waitress frowned, eyes narrowing slightly. "We don't do takeout orders at the table. If you're not dining in, you'll need to order at the counter." "I'm dining in." There was a pause. She didn't believe him. "Not really." Behind them, another customer walked in. The waitress turned to greet her with a smile, barely glancing back at Malik. "Just wait there. I'll get to you." Malik didn't move. He just looked at the name tag pinned to her shirt. "All right, Susan," he said, his tone flat but not unkind. "I'll wait." The name settled awkwardly in the air. And across the restaurant, the manager had just stepped out from the back, wiping his hands on a towel, unaware of the moment that had just begun. Susan didn't like the way he said her name. Not rude. Not loud. Just too calm. She seated the woman who had come in behind him, all smiles and right this way. Then returned to the host stand, pretending to look at the waiting list. There wasn't one. Malik still stood near the booth, one hand resting on the back of the vinyl seat. He hadn't moved. "You'll need to wait over there," Susan called, pointing toward the bench near the window. "I'm good here," he replied. She walked over, louder this time, footsteps fast. "Sir, we seat people when there's availability. You can't just pick where you want." His tone stayed even. "That one's available." "I watched it get wiped down." Susan glanced over her shoulder. A few people were starting to notice. A teenager with earbuds paused his scrolling. An elderly man looked up from his soup. "I'm not going to argue," she said, lowering her voice. "Neither am I," Malik said. That's when the manager arrived. Early 40s, tie a little loose, smile that had seen better days. He stepped between them smoothly. "Everything all right here?" Susan turned to him, relief in her voice. "He's refusing to wait to be seated. I told him to sit by the window. He's being difficult." Malik said nothing. Just looked at the manager. The man turned. "Sir, we just ask that people wait to be seated so it's fair for everyone." "I did wait," Malik replied. "She walked past me to seat someone else. No line. No list. Just skipped me." The manager glanced at Susan. She didn't meet his eyes. Then he looked at Malik again, this time with a little more care. He noticed the clean bag, the watch, not flashy, but expensive if you knew what you were looking at. His expression shifted just slightly. "I'll take you to a table myself," he said, motioning toward the same booth. Malik nodded once and followed. Susan watched them walk away, her face stiff. It wasn't over. But something had just shifted. And the ones who were watching now, they wouldn't forget. The manager handed Malik a menu and gestured toward the booth. "I'll send someone over in just a minute." Malik nodded, slipping into the seat. "Appreciate it." The man hesitated. "Let me know if you need anything else." He left quickly, not wanting to linger. A few nearby diners tried not to look. But they were listening now. Susan stayed behind the counter longer than necessary, wiping already clean menus. Another waitress, younger, cheerful, started toward Malik's booth with a pad in hand. Susan stopped her. "I've got it." "You sure?" "I'm already I said I've got it," she snapped, a little too fast. The younger woman shrugged and walked off. Susan approached the booth slowly, her pad ready, smile tight. "What can I get you?" Malik didn't look up right away. Then he said, "You think I came in here to cause trouble?" She blinked, caught off guard. "I know. I asked a question." Her jaw tightened. "I said no, didn't I?" He nodded slowly. Then closed the menu. "I'll have the turkey club. No mayo, fries, and just water." She scribbled it down. "Got it." Before she turned, he added, "You ever wonder how many people walk in here and get treated one way just because they don't look like they belong?" Her hand paused mid-turn. He continued, not angry, just calm. "You didn't ask my name. Didn't ask how many. Just told me to leave." Susan didn't answer. She walked away without a word. At the counter, she placed the order. Her fingers trembled slightly. And behind her, the teenage boy with earbuds had taken one out. He was still watching. The kitchen bell rang. "Order up." Susan didn't move right away. The cook, a guy named Ray who'd been around longer than most, leaned out the window. "You all right?" She nodded. Yeah. Just busy. Ray raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Turkey club. No mayo? She picked up the plate, straightened her apron, and walked it to Malik's table. He looked up as she set it down. Thank you, he said. She gave a quick nod, eyes darting elsewhere. Anything else? No. This is fine. She turned but paused just before walking away. Then without turning back, she said, Look, I didn't mean anything. I just didn't know. He picked up a fry. Didn't know what? Susan hesitated. That you were someone important. Malik didn't smile. He didn't flinch. So if I wasn't, then it's fine how I was treated? She didn't answer. He took a bite, chewing slowly. Behind him, the booth with the teachers had gone quiet. One of them whispered something. Another shook her head. People come in here looking different all the time, Susan finally said. We've had situations. I believe that, Malik replied. Still doesn't explain your tone. She looked down at her shoes. I was just doing my job, she muttered. Malik nodded once. Then maybe it's time to rethink what the job is. She left then. No reply. And across the room, someone was already typing on their phone, the way people do when they know a story's starting but they don't know how it ends yet. Malik finished his sandwich slowly, unfazed by the occasional glance or long stare. Susan kept to the other side of the restaurant, only approaching his booth when absolutely necessary. She refilled his water without speaking. He thanked her each time. She didn't reply. At the counter, the manager returned from the office, sipping a coffee. He scanned the room, then walked towards Susan, voice low. You all right? She nodded too quickly. Yeah. It's fine. He looked over at Malik, who now had his phone out and was typing something. That guy. He give you any trouble? Susan's eyes flicked to him. No. I just, maybe came off too quick. Thought he was a walk-in. The manager nodded, lips tight. Did he say who he was? No, she said. But he's not nobody. The manager glanced back again. Just then, Malik stood, folded his napkin, and walked toward the register. Susan stepped back instinctively, but he didn't stop at her station. He passed it. Went straight to the manager. You're in charge? Malik asked, voice even. I am. Malik pulled a slim wallet from his jacket and flipped it open. A badge gleamed. Not a police badge. A state ID. Malik Drayton. State Compliance Office. I'm conducting a casual audit on public accommodation standards. The manager's mouth opened, then closed. I'll follow up later in writing, Malik added. For now, I just needed a meal. And a sense of how things operate. He turned without waiting for a reply and walked to the door. Susan watched him go, her face drained. And the teenage boy at the booth? He muttered just loud enough for his friend to hear. Yo. That was the inspector. Neither of them said anything else. Because suddenly it all made sense. The door shut behind Malik with a soft thud. Not dramatic. Just final. Inside, the restaurant felt quieter than before. No one spoke, but everyone seemed to have something to think about. Forks moved slower. Conversations faded. Susan stood near the counter, arms crossed tightly. Her mouth was dry. She didn't look at the manager. Didn't need to. She could feel the weight of his stare. He finally spoke. You said he was just another walk-in. She swallowed. He looked like. Like what? He asked. Not harsh. Just tired. She didn't answer. A woman near the back raised her hand gently. The younger waitress moved to her, but the woman said no rush. Just wanted to say that man handled himself better than most would have. The waitress nodded, uncertain what to say. At the teacher's booth, one of them took out a pen and began scribbling something on a napkin. The others watched. Maybe it was notes. Maybe it wasn't. Back at the counter, Susan shifted her weight, her voice almost a whisper. Do you think he's going to file something? The manager didn't respond right away. I think, he said finally, he already has. Just not on paper. She looked up confused. He didn't need to raise his voice, the manager added. He let the room do it for him. Susan turned her face away. She needed a moment. But there were no moments left. Only the uncomfortable hush of a place that had just seen itself for what it was. And no one was ready for it. The manager retreated to the back office. Susan remained out front, pretending to wipe menus again. No one needed them. Most of the lunch crowd was halfway through their meals or already asking for checks. The teenage boy with the earbuds now had them both out. He hadn't touched his burger. Across the diner, the woman with the napkin finally stood. She walked to the counter and placed it gently in front of Susan. Not a tip. Just writing. Susan looked down. 4 words scribbled in neat block letters. Pay attention next time. The woman didn't wait for a reaction. She walked out. Susan blinked slowly. She left the napkin there, untouched. In the kitchen, Ray the cook leaned against the pass-through, watching. You get who that was yet? Susan didn't respond. Ray raised a brow. He's with the state. The people who make or break business licenses. Heard him say it clear as day. Another waitress came by, whispering. Do you think we're in trouble? Susan didn't answer her either. A man at a booth near the window asked for his check early. When Susan brought it, he didn't speak much. just handed her a 20 and said quietly, "It wasn't just what you said. It was how fast you said it." Then he left. And still, nobody raised their voice. No drama. No shouting. Just a slow, steady unraveling of excuses. And not a single person in the room seemed ready to stop thinking about it. Susan finally sat down on a stool behind the counter. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The lunch rush thinned, but the atmosphere never bounced back. Ray turned off the grill early. Orders had stopped coming in. People ate quietly or took food to go. There was no laughter now, no clatter of dishes. Just the low hum of conversations being avoided. Susan remained on the stool, staring at the napkin with its 4 blunt words. "Pay attention next time." It sat on the counter like a judgment. The manager stepped out of the office, holding his phone. He looked different now. Less sure of himself. "Susan," he said. She stood slowly. "Yeah? We'll talk later. I just got a voicemail from someone in licensing. He said someone would be following up." Her face paled. "Are we?" "I don't know," he said. "But that man, he didn't just walk in off the street. And he didn't just want a sandwich." She nodded barely. He added, "I need you to take the rest of the day." She didn't argue. Didn't ask if she was being written up. She just removed her apron and set it on the counter. Before walking out, she paused. "Was I that obvious?" she asked. The manager looked tired. "Yeah." As she opened the door, the bell jingled faintly. And at the far end of the diner, the teenage boy finally turned to his friend and said what everyone else was still holding back. She looked at him and made up a story. He didn't even have to say anything. And that was the part no one would forget. He didn't have to say anything, because they already had. By 3 p.m., the restaurant felt like a different place. The staff kept their heads down. The younger waitress had picked up Susan's section without complaint, but she moved cautiously now, like the air was heavier. In the back office, the manager sat with his phone on speaker, listening to a voice from the state compliance office. "We don't issue violations based on first impressions," the voice said. "But our auditors observe more than service. They listen to tone, language, and patterns. Mr. Drayton will submit a full report. If we need to follow up, we will." The call ended with a polite thank you, but no reassurance. The manager leaned back in his chair, stared at the ceiling for a long moment, then picked up the incident log. He began writing. Not just about Malik. He included other moments, ones that had slipped under the radar until now. A complaint last week from an elderly Latino couple who'd been left waiting too long. An employee who always seemed to speak differently when black customers ordered. A review left online by a young woman about being watched too closely near the register. He hadn't seen it then. Or maybe he had. But now, after today, it was harder to look away. When he finished, he sat in silence for another minute. Then he picked up the store phone and dialed. "Hey, Amy," he said when the assistant manager answered. "We need to do a full staff meeting. Not next week. Today. After close." She hesitated. "All of us." "All of us," he said. "It's time." Outside, the restaurant continued running like nothing had happened. But inside, at least in one corner of the office, a reckoning had quietly begun. At 9:15 p.m., the last customer left. Chairs were flipped onto tables, floor swept, coffee pots emptied. The team gathered in the back, some reluctantly, some curious, all quiet. The manager stood by the whiteboard, arms crossed, a stack of napkins in his hand. On top was the 4 words. "Let's not drag this out," he began. "We all saw what happened. Nobody moved." He held up the napkin. "Someone left this after today's incident." 4 words. Not angry, not threatening, just a reminder. Pay attention next time. He looked around. "I think we need to ask ourselves why that had to be said at all." The cook, Ray, leaned against the doorframe. He wasn't smiling. One of the newer servers asked softly, "Was he really with the state?" The manager nodded. "Yes." He didn't flash it around. Didn't want attention. He came in dressed like anyone else might. And some of us, he paused, eyes landing on a few, made a decision about him the second he walked in the door. A long silence followed. Then Amy, the assistant manager, spoke. "We treat people based on how we think they'll tip, or how much trouble they look like. It's not just today." Someone muttered, "Yeah, it's more than one person." Heads turned. The manager didn't interrupt. He let the air sit thick for a while before adding, "If we only give respect to people we think deserve it, we're not doing our jobs. We're just passing judgment." He set the napkin down. "No one's getting fired tonight, but things are going to change. Because if someone like that walks in again, and they will, I want this place to look different. Not just on the surface." He looked at the youngest waitress, who had quietly served Malik his water. "You did okay today. You stepped up." She blinked, unsure if it was praise or pressure. Maybe both. And then, for the first time since the meeting started, someone else spoke. "Right. his voice low but clear. I've been here 10 years, thought I'd seen everything. But I never saw a man get disrespected that calmly, and still leave people speechless. No one argued, because he wasn't wrong. The meeting ended just before 10 p.m. No applause, no speeches, just people filing out quietly, each carrying their own version of guilt, reflection, or defensiveness. Susan didn't return. The napkin stayed on the counter, flat and quiet, but more visible than the tip jar had ever been. The teenage boy from earlier posted something online that night. Not a video, not a rant, just a short sentence. The man they tried to ignore turned out to be the one they answer to. It got shared more times than he expected. People chimed in, some angry, some apologetic, a few defensive. The next morning, a new handwritten sign appeared at the diner's front entrance. Not corporate made, not laminated, just black marker on cardboard. Everyone gets a seat, no exceptions. A few passersby stopped to read it. Some nodded, others kept walking. Inside, the staff looked different, not in clothes or faces but in posture. They moved with less certainty, less assumption, more care. Ray didn't say much, just worked the grill with a quiet focus. Amy made eye contact with every guest she greeted, even when they looked nothing like the regulars. And the young waitress who'd served Malik? She placed the napkin inside her notebook, between two blank pages. She didn't know yet what she'd do with it, but she knew it wasn't trash. Not anymore. A week passed. The sign stayed taped to the glass, curling slightly at the corners, but no one took it down. Some customers noticed it. A few asked about it. Most didn't. But the people who worked there, they noticed. The tone had changed. Susan hadn't returned. Officially, she was on leave. Unofficially, no one knew if she was coming back. And no one rushed to fill her absence. The team ran leaner now. Slower but more deliberate. The younger waitress, her name was Kayla, started asking more questions. Did I seat them right? Was that the best way to say that? Should I have offered to help her carry that? Not to win points, just because she wanted to get it right. The manager spent more time up front, not watching for mistakes but being visible, present. When someone from a housing assistance group came in with a voucher and asked for directions to a shelter, he didn't redirect them with annoyance. He sat them down with a cup of coffee. On the house, Ray made extra pancakes and sent them out when an elderly couple came in with only enough for coffee. Didn't charge. Didn't mention it. No one clapped. No one posted it online. But something was shifting. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just better. And late one evening, as Kayla wiped down a booth, she found a note left behind on a napkin. This one in blue ink, slightly shaky handwriting. First time here. Haven't felt this safe in a while. Thank you. She folded it gently. Didn't show anyone. Just tucked it into the same notebook as the other one. The pages were still mostly blank, but they were filling. 2 weeks after the incident, Malik returned. Not in a suit. Not with an entourage. Just the same hoodie, same quiet step, same canvas bag. He entered mid-afternoon, between rushes. The diner wasn't full. Just a few scattered tables. Ray saw him first, nodded once, said nothing. Kayla approached him cautiously. Welcome back, she said softly, unsure if he'd even remember her. I remember, he replied. She smiled, relieved. Same seat. He nodded. As she led him back to the corner booth, a couple glanced over, then quickly looked away. Not out of discomfort, more like recognition. Malik sat. No ceremony. No badge. Just stillness. Kayla handed him a menu even though he didn't open it. Turkey club, no mayo? She asked. He smiled, just barely. Still got it. She returned to the counter. Ray was already on the grill, sandwich halfway done before she even called it out. The manager stepped out from the back when he heard the bell. He saw Malik, paused, then walked over slowly. Mr. Drayton, he said. Malik looked up. Just Malik today. The manager hesitated. You didn't have to come back. I wanted to, Malik said. See what stayed the same. And what didn't? The manager nodded. We've made changes. Not because we had to, but because we should have a long time ago. Malik watched him for a moment. I noticed, he said. On the way in. And that was all. The manager stepped back, not pushing the moment. Let it be. At the counter, Kayla brought over the sandwich. Neatly plated, water refilled, napkin placed carefully. This time, no tension. Just lunch. And in the booth beside Malik's, a young girl sat with her father, legs swinging under the table. She watched him curiously, not sure why he seemed familiar. Her father leaned over and whispered something in her ear. Her eyes widened slightly. She looked again. Not with fear. With respect. The kind that doesn't need titles. Malik didn't stay long. He ate quietly, paid in cash, left a tip folded beneath the edge of his plate. He didn't say goodbye on his way out. Didn't need to. The air had shifted, no tension, no hesitation. Just awareness. At the counter, Kayla waited until he was gone. Then she picked up the bill. Underneath the tip was a note, short and handwritten in neat block letters. You're doing it right. Keep going. She didn't show it to anyone. Just tucked it between the 2 napkins already in her notebook. Later that night, as she cleaned up, she found herself looking at the front door longer than usual. Watching the sign that still hung there. Everyone gets a seat. No exceptions. She wondered how long it would stay up. If it would fade in the sun. If someone would eventually replace it with something polished. But the truth was it already had weight. Not because it was official. Because it was earned. Across town, the manager filed away a letter he'd received that morning, standard state follow-up, no penalties issued. Just a note saying the site had addressed the incident adequately. He didn't feel relieved. He felt responsible. And that was the point. In the kitchen, Ray scrubbed down the grill in silence, then turned to Kayla on his way out. You know, he said, some lessons hit you like a slap. Others settle in quiet. You don't even notice they've changed you till you're already different. She nodded, not needing more. Outside, the wind picked up slightly. Just enough to flutter the sign on the glass. And for those who'd been paying attention, that was enough to remember. Weeks later, most of the regulars had stopped talking about the day the inspector came in. New stories had replaced it, a car accident on Main, a new coffee shop opening downtown. But the staff at the diner hadn't forgotten. The sign stayed up. No one asked if it could be taken down. Even when corporate sent new window decals, the manager left it in place. Curled edges and all. Susan never came back. No dramatic exit, no final statement. Just a silence that lingered. Kayla kept working. Never rushed. Always asked twice when someone looked unsure. And when she trained a new hire, nervous, young, quiet, she told her about the man who came in once, dressed plain, and left the whole place thinking. Ray noticed the difference too. Customers didn't get judged at the door anymore. Not out loud. And slowly, not in silence either. One Sunday afternoon, a woman came in wearing old jeans, holding a sleeping child on her shoulder. She looked worn. Tired. Like she hadn't been offered a seat in a while. Kayla met her at the door. Booth or table? She asked, smiling. The woman hesitated. Wherever's fine. No, Kayla said gently. Where would you like to sit? The woman chose the booth. And as she sat down, she noticed the cardboard sign. She didn't ask about it. Just looked at it for a long time, her hand resting lightly on her child's back. And for the first time in days, she didn't feel like she was in someone else's space. She felt like she belonged. Because some stories don't need to be retold to matter. They just need to change what comes next.